Omaha Beach was backed by a bluff more than 100 feet high. It was covered by 15 German strongpoints and other extensive defenses. Additional positions on the top of the bluff or in the draws leading up to it could fire down on anyone coming ashore.
At Omaha Beach, approximately 24,000 Americans were landing against Germans behind concrete in prepared infantry fighting positions, Germans that were in casemates with field artillery, long-range artillery, short-range artillery, anti-motor torpedo boat guns, German infantry behind concreted infantry fighting positions with MG-42 and MG-34 machine guns, not to mention the supporting fire of pre-ranged and pre-sighted mortars. The Germans had a network of fires that they could focus in on the Omaha Beach invasion area that would be devastating.
Omaha had far more pillboxes and other types of fortifications along the beach than at any of the American or British beaches. There were almost double the number of fortifications and gun sites than on any of the other beaches. And also, most of the Normandy beaches, the British beaches and Utah Beach, were manned by essentially second-rate German units, so-called static divisions. These were divisions that didn't have the best equipment, that didn't have the best personnel. In contrast, Omaha Beach was the only beach that was defended by a normal, full-strength German infantry division. The entire division wasn't there, but one of its regiments was there, and the regiment fought very, very well.
Their presence reinforced the 716th Static Division and doubled the amount of artillery that was in range of the beach. Finally, as if things couldn't get worse, the German defenses were also backed by 36 deadly 88mm guns from the 3rd Flak Corps. The tough assignment of attacking Omaha was given to the American 5th Corps, whose assault force was made up of the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions with reinforcements. The plan for Omaha called for the first wave to land at Dog and Easy sectors. 1st Division's 16th Regimental Combat Team would go ashore at Easy, while the 29th's 116th Regimental Combat Team, under control of the 1st Division, would hit Dog. Off the coast of Normandy at about 5:30, the duplex-drive Sherman tanks splashed off the ramps of their landing craft and started their long swim to shore.
On Omaha Beach, we had a total of 32 such tanks that was to have come ashore in that fashion. They did not work primarily because they floundered in heavy seas. I think there were a total of, out of the 32, there were maybe a total of 8 or 10 that finally got ashore somehow.
Shortly after 5:40, the naval force offshore opened fire on the defenses. However, poor visibility interfered with the aerial spotting for the guns, and combined with rough seas meant that most of the rounds overshot the German positions.
As far as you could see, there was battleships, there were destroyers, there was cruisers, there were all kinds of Navy gunfire, and they were hitting the beach, but they were not evidently not too effective.
Around 6 o'clock, almost 500 heavy bombers roared in over the coast and dropped 1,200 tons of bombs. However, the low cloud cover again interfered with visibility, and since the bombers had been cautioned not to hit the invasion fleet, they delayed their drop, causing most of the bombs to fall on the cow pastures and apple orchards inland of the beach defenses.
The Air Force, it was then called the Army Air Corps, missed the beach altogether. We had no support from the air on D-Day, none.
Some of the Army artillery, firing directly from landing craft, closed to within 1,000 yards of the beach, trying to pick off targets on the bluffs.
We started on there, and they went, well, I didn't know it this at the time, but we went at 1,000 yards of the beach, and they fired 349 rounds of 105. Now, why they didn't fire 350, I don't know. Somebody counted them. And we went in and fired on selected targets till we couldn't fire them over within 1,000 yards of the beach. There wasn't nobody in front of us. Now, they did say that duplex tanks were supposed to be the first in. Didn't see nobody in front of us.
The seasick men on the landing craft heading into the beach were unaware of the failure of the naval and aerial bombardments and felt sure the German defenders had been killed by the preparation.
They depended on that preliminary aerial bombardment and also a preliminary naval bombardment to neutralize the German strong points and then also to provide craters that the infantry could use as cover as they advanced across the open beaches to the base of the bluff and then beyond.
Well, you had all these airplanes coming over, and then you had the fire from the ships, the shelling the beach. I tell you, there was so much stuff going on that, and so much noise from the guns, from the ships. We thought there would be none left, really, because that's what we were told, that the shelling and all that was going to take care of the Germans, and apparently they never killed nobody. They were sitting there waiting for us in these pillboxes.
So we thought we had it made because they told us what was going to take place. The Navy, the Air Corps, the tanks. So we thought we had it made.
Now, the infantrymen that were making the landings off of the Higgins boats that morning, they had been promised that when the ramps drop, you'll walk ashore. You're going to be facing a situation where the Germans are either dead in their bunkers or they're so stunned from the incredible weight of the preliminary aerial and naval bombardment, they won't be able to put up much in the way of resistance. Nothing could have been further from the truth.
Of course, got close to the shore, we could hear gunfire. We'd see there was a lot of haze or smoke over the beach. We, at that point, I guess, had figured out that maybe some of those measures had not been effective.
At 6:30, the first wave of landing craft came under German artillery fire.
When my little boat approached Dog Green sector, the first thing that happened was the boat on our port side blew up. We were showered with wood, metal, and body parts from about 15 feet up.
A few minutes later, the first landing craft hit the beach at Omaha, and their crews dropped their ramps. Hardly a GI had taken a step forward when a hurricane of machine gun fire swept through their ranks.
It sounded like a chain being dragged across the metal. And then afterward, we realized it wasn't a chain, it was the machine gun bullets hitting the ramp. And when the ramp went down, then the guys in the front got hit, you know, and like I say, I don't know how any of us got out.
They dropped our ramp. It was a signal for every machine gun on that beach to open up on our exit to that boat. Lieutenant Harold Donaldson of Texas, he was machine gunned right away, never got out of the boat. And a few of the people around him were machine gunned, like they showed in Saving Private Ryan. Now, the fellow in front of me was Clarius Riggs of Tennessee, and he was anxious to get off that boat to kill Germans. He was machine gunned on the ramp. I dove in behind him, and only my helmet was creased by a bullet. And there I was standing in bloody, neck-deep water, my rifle over my head.
A few of the landing craft crews, not wanting to expose themselves or their load of soldiers to the devastating fire, backed out into deeper water.
As we were going into the beach on this landing craft, the coxswain or whatever he was running the thing, he got up to the beach and he says, "I can't let the ramp down. I'm going to have to back out in deeper water. You're going to have to go over the side." So he backed out into the water where it's about 8 feet deep, I guess, and we bailed out over the sides. But I got in on the beach and I knew that I didn't want to stay there. There was too many others laying around there.
Nowhere was it worse than at the Dog Green sector of Omaha Beach, in front of a little beach community called the Vierville-sur-Mer. The elements of the 29th Infantry Division and the 2nd and 5th Ranger Battalions were to land there. The 29th Division, they landed with their first wave. It was A Company, 116th Infantry Regiment of the 29th Division. When A Company landed, they had approximately 165 men. Within 5 minutes of combat, 91 killed in action. In addition to the 91 killed, they suffered about 65 wounded, so that literally in 5 minutes' time, an entire company of 165 men, a reinforced rifle company, had been reduced to a handful of men that were capable of fighting.
In essence, the invasion plan, as had been so meticulously formulated in the past 4 or 5 months, fell apart almost immediately. The immediate need for the American soldiers landing on Omaha Beach was survival.
As the first wave floundered, the second and third waves reached the beach, and the men staggered ashore amidst a shower of fire to join their fellow soldiers in a fight for survival.
The wave that I came in was largely decimated by fire, as had previous waves. And that particular area of the beach that I came into was one of the hottest, if not the hottest, on Omaha Beach.
Another loud thud behind me on the left, and that soldier was gone. I hit the sand behind one of the hedgehogs. Didn't offer much cover, but I hit the ground behind it, and I observed to my right, and Robert Dittmar of Fairfield, Connecticut, was lying on his back staring skyward, and he was yelling, I'm hit, Ma, Mother, silent. I looked over to my left, and the noise was horrendous on that beach. Sergeant Clarence Robeson was staggering by me without his helmet, gaping hole in the left side of his forehead, his blonde hair streaked with blood, and I yelled for him to get down, but I'm sure he didn't hear me, and he was probably out of it. He staggered behind me, all the way behind me to the left, knelt down facing the wall, took out his rosary beads, and started praying. And that machine gunner in the zigzag trenches cut him in half. But I mean really cut him in half. We had 85% casualties in the first 5 minutes.
What made it so bad, the way they had it set up, their machine guns would crisscross to one another on the beach. So you were never without fire. And then they had the 88s coming in, German artillery, was firing in, and the mortars, and then you had the snipers, and it just never stopped, you know. I don't know how we ever got ashore, really.
And just then, an 88 millimeter shell went off in front of me and blew this cheek off. Took out my left upper jaw, the roof of my mouth. I had teeth and gums laying on my tongue. Bedford Holback got hit with the same shell that hit me here, and he died. And next to him was a fellow named Elmere Wright, who had a St. Louis Brown pitching contract, and he was lying dead. I crawled right by them.
You saw, unfortunately, people who were in agony dying and had not gotten any medical help yet. The medics were doing their best to get around, but they frankly were not able to do a lot, and they themselves were subject to the same enfilade fire. They weren't exempted from it.
The first landing waves took awful casualties. In the case of the 116th Regimental Combat Team, there were some companies that basically lost half their personnel within a half hour. Some units were simply entirely wiped out. It not only affected the infantry, though. One of the critical problems was that large numbers of the engineer teams that were supposed to blow gaps in the beach obstacles were also killed. These gap clearing teams were supposed to come in and blow up the obstacles so that as the ocean rose later in the day, they landed at low tide, it was later going to be high tide, the engineers were supposed to clear paths through these obstacles. Many of those engineer teams were killed. And as a result, later in the morning, there are no clear paths for the landing craft to come in to drop off reinforcements.
Before the few surviving engineers could accomplish their mission, the next wave arrived, and a new problem was encountered.
We got things hooked up, and then we couldn't fire to blow the gaps, and we were supposed to blow gaps in the obstacles. But then the infantry came in on top. They were either we were late or they were early, And it was a question of whether you was going to fire and blow the gaps and kill all your people, or let them take a chance and go on in and come back later and do it, you know.
After the first few waves, the Omaha landing was in utter chaos. Hundreds were already dead, and no real movement inland had been achieved. Omaha Beach was in jeopardy.